Great. Hi, everyone. This is Max, and I'm here today with the European Time Zone Meetup Group, and we're going to be reading selections from Laynie Brown's Daily Sonnets. We're going to start with Sonnet 60, or page 60. Well, okay, Zach, you'll edit this out. We're going to start with 614 Done Sonnet. I am a liturgy worsted made cupidity of elixir and angelica spumone. I am a minute orb made subtly of rudiments, and innocent goblin, I am a little live oak made cupbearer of Elizabethan and angstrom sprawl. The next is 2/14 sonnet. This undressing at security checkpoints would never have gone over with the Victorians. And now, an untitled. In Chinese astrology, you are a snake, but at home you are a kitty knight. You don't have any bunny in your body. You ate a bunny, but you're not a bunny king. To make a person, you need two people. Otherwise, you'll just get a big belly and the baby will never hatch. Your favorite food is syrup. Jewel Jim the pig, our pet caterpillar, red, gray, yellow, and black, is searching for a bramble leaf to eat. My rice bowl is not full. Jacob kicked me in the top of my nose. We pushed each other off of the couch. And the last one, I'm a bunny in a human suit, so people don't try to eat me when I go shopping. Is it not winter at his house? Daytime never ends. What is that living in our curtain, gray and yellow and red? Our neighbor rakes a tree. Does an apple cry done going down?
So who is this Laynie Brown? No.
Yes.
Did you share the screen, Max?
No, I shared the link in the chat. You can open
What
it.
was the first one that you read? I had
The first
the
one is the 6/14 Done sonnet. I am a liturgy worsted made cupidity of elixir and angelica spumoni. I am a minute orb made subtly of rudiments and innocent goblin. I am a little live oak made cupbearer of Elizabethan and angstrom sprawl. So it's 6 lines, hence the title 6/14. So it's 6/14 of a sonnet. This was also a little bit, these poems were briefly discussed in the webcast the other day, so there was a little bit of a conversation about simplifying the fractions. So Laynie calls it the 6/14 sonnet and the 2/14 sonnet rather than the 3/7 and the 1/7 sonnet, which is what it mathematically would be more elegant. But I guess she's making, in some ways, maybe this is easier to understand. I think maybe if you call it the 1/7 sonnet, people would have it would make less sense. I don't know.
I think it would make much less sense because the 14th connects it to the sonnet, doesn't it?
Of course, yeah. Hence the right. So we know it's a 14 or a 14 line poem. So yeah. So keeping that 14 intact is like helps us grasp it. But yeah, so we have these the first two, which are these sort of fractions of sonnets, and then the last two I read are actually 14 line sonnets, even though they're not formally, aside from being 14 lines, they're not formally traditional sonnets insofar as they don't have that kind of ABBA rhyme scheme or the any kind of regular meter, as far as I can tell. Yeah, I mean, the Duns.
What I liked best was your confusion about the first one. Is it page 60 or what is the 60? This is the page. Usually sonnets are numbered in cycles, so it is number 60, and at the same time it's also page 60 with the page number. Here is the page number, and even that is a feature of the sonnet, the publication, that you publish a sonnet on only one page.
Right.
And what's great is this one here, the 214th sonnet, only 2 lines on 1 page, indicating that there is so much meaning behind that, that there's that these poems are so powerful. And this is also true for Laynie Brown.
Yeah, I think that there's a kind of elegance to the fact that it can or should fit on a single page. Somebody else wanted to, was it Terry? I'm sorry, I was maybe looking away from my screen. Somebody else was maybe beginning. No, okay. Was some no, okay. Yeah.
The only thing I wanted to say was, and I mean, I just kept saying this stuff to myself. You said Cupid. You try to rhyme subtly, cupidity, subtly. We say it in English. That's a word. That's a hard word for us.
Totally.
And you were trying to rhyme it with cupidity, and then you tried to rhyme Elizabethan with it too. When you first read it,
Elizabethan with
subtly cupidity. Cupidity is not really. I mean, that's a neologism, right? And subtly. So that would be A, B, A, B. So when it came to A again, subtly, cupidity, you tried to make cupidity.
yeah.
Subtly, you stumbled over that word you actually were trying to make it match. Just, it's interesting. It was an interesting hearing.
That's
a hard word.
But I think that's also just what these, familiar forms invite, right? Like you start to.
That's right. It's the form that did it. It wasn't your dyslexia or your list or whatever else you have.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was.
Yes, but is it a quatrain?
And of course, most of her lines don't have 10 syllables, so that makes it much harder if you're thinking sonnet. The first one has 13, and then the second one has 11.
Yeah.
So you can't make them into pairs, and then
I don't think it's a quatrain, as we have in an English sonnet. I think it's only a couplet, 2 lines, and then she starts again. She has 3 attempts of creating something that's comparable to John Donne. It's always the same. You have this parallelism of I am something, of something, and the rest.
Yeah.
My bit of playing says that in the first one and the third one, she used N+, but she never used N+ the same number of words, not in my dictionary anyway. And then in the middle one, I think she must have done that with a thesaurus, because all the changes in the middle couplet are words that you'd pick up if you just look at Donne's original in the thesaurus.
The middle couplet, I am a minute orb made someone.
Yes, that one, all of that one, which doesn't start with the same letters like the first and third one do, so they can't be N+s. I think they're simply thesaurus ones, because all those come in a thesaurus. You can get all those words in a thesaurus. I had loads and loads and loads of fun with this, with the dictionary and a thesaurus, and working out how I thought she might have done it, and then making a kind of a translation, because I had to look up some words because I didn't know what they meant. And once I got into that, I looked up all her words. And then I had this completely wonderfully mad, what I've called 614 done sonnet undressed, because it's just translations of the words.
I've posted the source text here in the right.
So Jenny, do you have your thing that you could read?
Yes, it might be a bit up and down because I've done all sorts of crossings out, but I can do, and all the words I've used are direct translations of meanings of her words from dictionaries. So I'm a celebration of Eucharist, beaten and made covetous. of a liquid with the power of indefinitely prolonging life, and a defense against poison and pestilence, and ice cream layered in different colors. I'm a very tiny ring, carrying celestial bodies in their revolutions around the earth, made artfully of the simplest principles of a subject, and a mischievous sprite in bogey form, not guilty in quotation marks. I'm a little evergreen that can regenerate itself, made an officer of high rank in biblical times, with the duty of filling the king's cup and presenting it to him, of Don's era, and a unit of length equal to half the width of an atom, kicking my limbs about. So it's completely balmy, but it was a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Really good.
And you could,
Yeah.
I mean, you could take, some of those words have several different translations, so you could make something quite different. The only thing it doesn't is angstrom, which is a unit of length, which is very tiny and happens to be half the width of an atom. An atom is 2 angstroms wide.
Or a man's name.
Or a yes,
Angstrom.
it's a man's name too, because the unit was called after the man's name. That's true.
Mhm.
You could have it as the man's name. But it was silly probably, but once I'd started
Oh,
delving
this is
into
great.
it was just fun.
Very, very helpful. Spuma is foam. I knew that word from
Yeah.
French.
It's,
Yeah, spumoni.
it's Italian.
Oh my God. So how does she make this richer than Dunn's? Obviously,
Yeah.
Jenny has made this much richer than Laynie's. But how does this human on human? How does this enrich these what we're thinking about?
It's a good question, Barry. Anybody want to attempt an answer?
I was very interested because the other thing I did was compared it to the Dun, all the way down the Dun. And I don't know if I've still got the notes of that, but most of the words did relate to something in the Dun. Angstrom obviously not, because he and the unit weren't there in Dunn's time. But a lot of the others did, which quite surprised me. But I think it's richer in lots of ways. But then that I'm not a big fan of Elizabethan sonnets, really. So, and Donne is such a what's the word I want? He's sort of obsessed with himself and his feeling that he's not worthy. So he's got this kind of becoming an Anglican, but not worthy to be an Anglican because of his misspent youth, and then becoming a priest because other people pushed him to, and becoming a very good priest, but still not believing in himself. So they're kind of angst-ridden things. And this one's the same, you know, it's he's not good enough for himself.
But he starts with this. So I posted this first text. I mean, he starts with this very interesting claim, right? I am a little world made cunningly of elements in an angelic sprite. And then it goes on, yeah, as you're saying, Jenny, it kind of goes on into this sort of like more or less typical self-flagellating thing about, you know, the sin, the darkness of the sin, blah blah blah, right? But so I think it's like what Laynie is sticking with here is just that opening, right? This idea of being a little world made cunningly of elements and an angelic sprite. This sort of creation story, right? And I mean, actually, I think that I am a little world made cunningly is a rather like when it's taken out of context, feels very modern and Modpovian, like dare we say Dickinsonian, something like that, right? Like there is this power in smallness that's being evoked. I'm a little world made cunningly, this kind of cosmologic There must be a difference between cosmic and cosmological. I want to go with cosmological. Insofar as
Right.
ever
But
relating
you're just-
to a cosmos or something.
Do you want to make
Made
it,
of
do you want to
elixir.
make it more out of this world? Is that what you're trying to do?
No, I want to talk. There's a sort of theory of a system here. It's a little world made cunningly. There's all the little elements that fit together,
Oh,
Ah,
and that
Yeah.
And Laynie keeps a minute orb, which you could see as a little world in
Right.
the second.
right.
No,
Well,
and
and-
And she keeps a liturgy in the first one, which isn't in the Dun, but it does relate to him as a person, if you like. So
Mhm.
Okay, hold on a minute. What is a worsted? Worsted could be a verb, but don't we call it's a worsted
Fabric.
sweater?
It's a fabric.
woolen fabric.
Wool.
It's a fabric. It's a
Okay.
Right,
fine
so
smooth
worsted-
yarn. Yeah, it's
Oh,
a fabric.
So it's a fabric, and liturgy is the adjective. I am a little world. I am a fabric that is made into a liturgy that is liturgical.
wow. That's good.
Terry, I don't think you were wrong right from the start. It looks like a verb, and I'm sure that Laynie Brown is playing with language.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
I think so
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And I did use it as a verb when I made my little translation
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
it,
you did.
it
but
makes
what's-
sense as a verb. But actually, worsted fabric was incredibly different. What's the word? Incredibly important to the British economy in Elizabethan times.
Mm.
So I think she is playing with words.
And then she brings spumoni, which is like ice cream.
Spumoni, yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Italian ice cream as an homage to Petrarch,
Yes.
inventor
And
of the sonnet.
That's great.
what was
Spumoni is
that,
also.
Mark, about ice cream?
Hmm?
Spumoni
What
has
did Mark say
three
about ice
levels.
cream?
Spumoni has three levels. Three.
Yes.
So that would mean three levels in this.
And if you don't count the nuts, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's different colored. It's like different.
The
But
worsted
doesn't-
could be material with three different threads pulled together.
Mhm.
Worsted.
What
Worsted
That's why
is
there are
three.
3 couplets.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
Interesting parallel.
Oh, 3 couplets. Yeah.
Doesn't spumoni mean something like foam, like spumante, or does anybody speak Italian? Like
There wasn't any other translation than ice cream in the dictionaries, but spume
Yeah.
is part of foam, I agree.
yes, yeah. We have similar words in English, right? Like yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm just basing this on spumante, which is like a kind of like prosecco, right? Which is I think the name is something like
Yeah.
foamy or something like that, right? So I think
Espuma is my foam roof. I have to say, espuma.
oh, okay. So yeah, I mean, I think the foaminess though that you kind of get, I think that fits with this sort of microcosmic thing going on, right? She's taking I'm the little world made cunningly, and it's becoming a liturgy worsted. I mean, the worsted wool, right? It's or the
Mhm.
worsted fabric. It's made from very small wool threads.
Mhm.
And it also says it's stapled. It's stapled wool. What does that mean? Stapled.
stapled wool.
Yeah, that's what worsted says right here.
Yeah, but that's the wool with the staple on it, so that you don't smooth it as much as you do for some other wool.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
So the
okay.
staples are some of the fibers. So it's what it really is scratchy wool. If you had it next to your skin, it'd be scratchy like my school Sunday sacks when I was at boarding school.
It's like John the Baptist with his hair shirt, right?
Something like that. Yes. I think my Sunday dresses at boarding school were made of it because they were so itchy.
Oh yeah, and so the liturgy
itch.
is, yeah, the liturgy is the language, is what the definition, Jenny Ann, was something, it's the thing we're all praying together. And that is that's scratching this body that you're talking about, Max, that's foamy and elixir liquid.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I keep thinking about the if Spoonie has like 3 layers, and if we read the 3 couplets as the 3 layers, can we also just say that the poem is talking to us in a way? It's like I am, the I am means the poem is instead of the speaker is. Maybe in that way we can. I didn't think about that before, but that made me kind of realize that it doesn't have to be the speaker; it can also just be the poem, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point. We haven't even addressed the I yet, which feels like such a good starting point for this. But totally, and I think that's also extremely fitting with the kind of conceptual poetic philosophy, right? Like, and also with the N plus kinds of procedures, right? We're going to kill the author, right? Like we're going to take John Donne, who seems to have a strong sense of who he is and what he wants to proclaim, and Laynie's going to take that and be like, okay, we're going to chop this up, mix it up, and it's going to become, yeah, totally. There's actually this kind of like this more of a textual phenomenon. I mean, any thoughts on this, on the I here, the poem?
I would also like to include liturgy. It also means order. It sets the rules how to celebrate the Mass. And here it also sets rules how to write the perfect sonnet. Maybe the sonnet is really speaking here, saying, I am the one who sets the rules. I have to consist of 14 lines, it has to be pentameter, it has to have a certain rhyme scheme. Or it is Laynie Brown saying, I give the new rules what a sonnet should be.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it's a sonnet already adds the intertextuality, but then including John Donne definitely does as well. So he's echoed in the I am as well, or just any sonnet writer. Kind of, and then even Jenny, you added a new layer just by writing yourself.
We started answering Terry's question, whether the sonnet improves the tradition of sonneteering, of sonnet writing.
I see it as a completely different thing, really. I can't see how you compare a banana with an apple in a way.
You know, I think the sonnet's a perfectly good form, and it has its own constraints. And instead of experimenting on the sonnet, it just seems to be something new apart. And with all due respect to Laynie Brown, I prefer to have the 2 kinds of sonnets with their form, because it's a challenge. It's not easy to write a sonnet series. But I think what she calls in her notes, generative experimentation, moving about in 14 lines, that's quoting Laynie Brown. But okay, she could generate all by herself with 14 lines without calling it a sonnet. I think it's off. I don't really like the experiment.
I think
What's the
it's
importance of
humorous.
these 14 lines? We all learn at school a sonnet consists of 14 lines, but when we have a look at Shakespeare, he wrote 154 sonnets. 2 sonnets have only 12 lines, 2 are missing, and 1 sonnet has even 15 lines, 1 more. And we consider Shakespeare as the greatest sonneteers of all times, so it is allowed to vary these numbers. The sonnet is a very condensed form, 14 lines, that's quite short. And here we have Laynie Brown, who succeeds in writing a sonnet that's even shorter, that is round about half the length size of the sonnet. After all, Shakespeare also used half sonnets in Romeo and Juliet. He has a quatrain plus a couplet, and he also used in his dramas in his plays, sonnet-like forms that only have 6 lines.
And we have to remember that sonnets were being written before Shakespeare. He
Right.
didn't invent them.
It's just
And I
like,
don't know anything about what they were like, but I do know that they existed.
there's Petrarch.
Oh, they came almost at the same
Yes.
time as William Shakespeare. It was Thomas Wyatt who introduced the Italian sonnet into England, into the English language, and that was a few decades before Shakespeare.
Thank you.
And then there was also Sir Philip Sidney and Edmund Spenser. They were the great sonneteers before Shakespeare, also contemporaries of Shakespeare.
Right, right.
I love the line, little live, I am a little live oak made cup bearer, because that again goes to the form. Like she's saying that I mean, it's that the tradition is not a dead one, it's a live oak, and she's made cup bearer. Aren't the cups and the chalices in churches sometimes made of wooden goblets?
But cupbearers were very specific historical biblical things.
Biblical, yeah.
They were in effect the very important person who delivered the wine to the king and presumably tasted it first to make sure he didn't drop dead.
Oh yeah, make
So
sure it wasn't lined.
cupbearers might be used in church services as well, but originally with that. But if they're used in church services as well, then that's an interesting double meaning of the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
I also really like this last couplet, Vijaya. For several reasons. One, I think it offers, or it really puts forth the theory of the sonnet that Laynie wants to conceptualize here, right? And I think Yunia is right, and we need to read these IMs as being, the sonnet speaking, the poem speaking, and then we can read it as like it's Laynie's. It's not Laynie saying I am a little live oak, but it's Laynie being like, this is what a sonnet is, right? And if we can, maybe a sonnet is a little live oak of something. So the poem is sort of speaking and trying to kind of theorizing itself. And this goes a little bit to Mark's point about the historical variation in sonnet lengths. And right, so like if we all are taught that a sonnet is 14 lines, and then somebody shows you something that's 6 lines and is like, oh yeah, but this is a sonnet, then what is it about a sonnet, beyond the number of lines that qualifies it as a sonnet? Is there something poetic? Is there something aesthetic? Is there something meta? Is there something that qualifies a sonnet as a sonnet beyond the strictures around the numbers of lines? And I think it does actually come down to this idea of that we've been talking about quite a bit already, of compression, the idea of the poem being able to fit on a page, the idea of there's a sort of tidiness to the 14 lines, right? That there's something about the sonnet that is, a little world made cunningly, as Donne says. And here in this last couplet, I am a little live oak. So here we have little, right? We have little comes back, it's left in. I'm a little live oak made cupbearer, which is, as we're saying now, an important but somewhat humble role, right? Of Elizabethan and Angstrom sprawl. So we have these two now competing adjectives: Elizabethan, sort of historicizing the sonnet as a form that's very important for Elizabethan times, and Angstrom, right, bringing it into essentially quantum physics. Maybe somebody wants to criticize my use of my invocation of quantum physics here, but right, the angstrom is being a subatomic unit of measurement, and there's again this there's this tininess that's being evoked, this smallness, this idea of compression of something that's so small yet so foundational. To everything, to the sprawl, the angstrom sprawl. That's also the spreading wide my narrow hands to gather paradise, right? this
Mhm.
idea of the
It's
meaning.
also a contradiction. Just as
Yeah.
Done has angelic sprite, which is a contradiction.
Oh, the angelic sprite. Okay, yeah.
Because, you know, a sprite's a mischievous goblin kind of thing, and an angelic, and here she's got angstrom and small, which are contradictions as well, really, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, elements, yeah, elements, well, elements in angelic sprite these are already, right? Like Elizabethan and angstrom, these are already sort of contradictions and opposing terms, right? He's saying like Donne in the original saying I am a world made cunningly of elements and angelic sprite, being like, I'm made of like, bones and physical things and stuff like that, but I'm animated, I'm brought to life by the spirit. And so, playing in that kind of complicated space, right? Like of being like I'm a body, but I'm also like a soul, right? And so Laynie's playing with that even.
Light.
Hmm?
Light. Angstrom is what we use to describe light. And this was light in so many angstroms. So it's the sprawl of light. I am a, and I just said light.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Light. It's measured in angstroms, right? Jeroen?
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it is,
length
but-
of the wavelength of light is in the angstrom scale.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just looking. It's a unit of length equal to 1/10 billionth of a meter. So
Yeah.
pretty small.
For me, the word live is very significant because what she's saying is that if you stick to what has gone before, that if you stick only to the 14 lines, it's like a dead tradition. But I'm the one who's making it live, right?
Yeah.
This is like a living tradition. If you just follow what the people previously are doing, then I mean that becomes like a dead tradition. It's like, it's hardened. And then of course then she moves on to the atomic kind of thing, like
Yeah.
inside us of how we are.
Mary, what do you think of what Vijaya is saying?
I think maybe an angstrom sprawl means that she personally thinks that her distance to the normal sonnet is very small.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
That's nice.
True.
Isn't an oak a very old tree, or they can get old?
Yeah,
Isn't
they
it
can
so
be
that
really.
oaks look better the older they are, similar to the sonnet, which is quite old, and it looks more and more beautiful,
Yeah.
more attractive.
Nice. Yeah.
I mean the romantics, they were fascinated by the sonnet. Victorians, and the question is, what about the 20th century? Is it still a genre in which our poets should write? And I think here Laynie Brown in the 21st century says it is the right
Yes.
genre. It's
Yeah.
little,
It is,
small,
yeah.
it only
Yeah.
has 14 lines, and
Yeah.
I present something that is even shorter than 14 lines. It's still living, it's still alive, and it's like a wonderful old oak.
Yes, because I walk near the lake here, and the oak they sprawl out, over the trail, and they bend towards the water on the lake, and it's beautiful. It's like they are like canopies, kind of. So yeah.
Oh, we do not have these wonderful oaks. Terry sent one.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
No, we don't have those either.
Live oak is the name of the tree.
Does it also
The small
look
tree.
like a
Small
family tree? And here she
well,
refers to the tradition of the sonnet. I'm part of that family tree of sonnetteers.
Yeah.
oh,
Yes. She's
Isn't it
kind of
also
establishing. Yeah.
just
Laynie-
saying
yeah.
well the oldest tree is probably the tree of knowledge from Genesis, where Adam and Eve got the fruit from, and the fall of man, a kind of beginning of mankind.
Mhm. Mhm.
And more descriptive than the word world, little live oak.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
live oaks are very big trees, aren't they, when they get full size?
Yes, the
They're
sapling.
not tall. They go this way, but they live for a really long time.
Hmm.
Big, yes, but wide, more wide than, than the redwoods
Mhm.
from where Vijaya's from.
So how does this sort of celebration or appreciation of the sonnet form that we're seeing here, at least with this Donne sonnet, the 614th sonnet, I mean, how does is this consistent across the other ones? I mean, if we take a look at the subsequent one, 214th sonnet, which is just 2 lines, this undressing at security checkpoints would never have gone over with the Victorians. I mean, what kind of theory of the sonnet are we encountering now? Is it, I mean, if we understand these in some ways to be meta sonnets that are all in some way invested in theorizing the sonnet form, what conclusions can we draw now? I mean, so we've been talking, we've done a really good job, I think, sort of glossing what is in fact a somewhat difficult or sort of at times seemingly nonsensical poem, and kind of drawing out these different sorts of value judgments and these kinds of evocations, right? We're just talking here about the little live oak, which is actually a rather lovely image. But here, this undressing at security checkpoints would never have gone over with the Victorians. I mean,
Is there a Victorian sonnet?
Yeah.
Is Spenser
Yeah,
Victorian
yeah.
Spenser? I don't know.
Oh, I would have started with Shakespeare again. The sonnet itself starts as a tradition of love poetry. That's what Petrarca created. And it took a while until Shakespeare took over, and he changed the topics to time. And the sonnet here also is about time. We have 2 references to time. First to the Victorians, and then the checkpoints, which to
It's
me
modern, very modern.
marks 9/11 or post 9/11. So she
Yeah.
is addressing these 2 points in time. And of course, also the Victorians, they rediscovered the sonnet, and they also had their sonnet cycles.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great contextualization, Mark, of the temporal theme of sonnets. Right, we have the post 9/11 invocation with security checkpoints. Victorian.
And then also the fun that is behind it. Can you imagine a Victorian person at a checkpoint?
Yeah, right. Of course.
I laughed at first.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Everyone would miss the plane.
But no, there would be an outrage by the woman.
The Victorian would hold up a long line of people.
So
And to do it as a modern thing too, could you see it could be the comic movie where they're undressing like that, and out comes a whip or something, and other weird things that they've hidden under all this, the little derringer.
So the Victorians would not like us undressing the sonnet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think that's how I read it as well. Like undressing, and just in the sense of shortening it, maybe in a way what she did before with the sonnet 60 or 614th with Donne sonnet. I mean, they were really, even though Mark, you were right, they weren't really like Shakespeare did stuff that wasn't 14 lines long. But still, like the sonnet is a pretty strict form. And even today, like, of course, you are encouraged to kind of play with the form, but if it looks like a sonnet, I think there's still people that would really like to have it as a 14-line thing with iambic pentameter and everything. And even like especially the Victorians would not have liked that.
And it's great that it's not just undressing; it's undressing at security checkpoints. It's really making the the need for shortening as something that is not even voluntary, but it's something that is required of us nowadays. So that brings a heaviness to it.
I link it to skywritings. You know,
Yeah.
It's like, because it's
Because-
like nowadays travel is something of almost a necessity for work and for other matters. I mean, it's like so basic. We have to, it's like during the Victorians, I'm sure they didn't travel that much. If at all they traveled only short distances.
Yeah, or by steamship, or like it was definitely different.
And
experience.
I doubt if there were that many security checkpoints either.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, there's an interesting there's definitely an observation being made here around like the idea of security as a necessity, and that as we're saying now is actually a relatively recent phenomenon.
And the fact that we are a global village, that
Yeah,
it's
and that's
not just the Victorian. Like, I mean, here we are talking, we are all from different countries, and we are talking about poetry in English, right? But it's like it's across so many checkpoints. Like, if we really have to meet in a room, kind of.
But there's the global village is that's
Yeah.
such a good way to put it, Vijay. But because right, the frequency of air travel and the banality of it in the 21st century, right, is really it's very much tied up with globalization, which is a very different sort of world system or world order than the one the Victorians would have been familiar with, which was the kind of empire. And so you have this where you may, as a Victorian of enough means, travel to the imperial to the colonies, to the imperial
Colonies, right? Yeah.
and but you today we're sort of bouncing around, and there's a few different things that are being evoked here. Really, what is shocking the Victorians?
Yeah.
Well-
right? Like the undressing at the security checkpoints, right? Because of the different sort of conventions and customs around clothing,
Max,
but also the ease or the different relations of countries and world powers, right? I think that's perhaps
Yeah.
something as well.
Max, look at you, kid from New Jersey, and you're in Berlin writing
Yeah.
a paper on freeways in the United States.
It's true.
I mean, that's called global village right there.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So
Right,
I'd like to say
Yeah.
that Victorian times, the individuals traveling, they were traveling probably in coaches pulled by horses, and they need individual security because there were so many robberies. It was very dangerous to travel in the Victorian times. So security has a whole different meaning.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was all about hiding your money under layers of clothing and things like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So quite the opposite to our checkpoint lark.
And all the secret pockets in the skirts and
Well,
where
this-
women
I wonder
kept-
if Laynie Brown knows what she started here.
Yes, but it's conditional. It says would never have gone. It doesn't say they went through these checkpoints. Security checkpoints, to me, that's clear that these are our modern post 9/11 checkpoints.
Mhm.
Hey, and
Can you
Mark,
believe-
sorry, I was just going to ask about the idea of the tone of the speaker. I think Unia started this in about the top one that you said it was love poems, and then would it be the speaker as the poet expressing love for someone in the first parts, the first 12 lines, and then the couplet is usually kind of a summation or something. There's a for content, there's something traditional in the sonnet, isn't there?
The Volta, there's
Yes, there are two traditions of sonnets. The Petrarchan or Italian tradition has the octave and the sestet, and it's more like a scale. You have an argument and a counter argument. With Shakespeare, the English sonnet tradition, that's different. You have 3 quatrains and you have a development. And after the first 2 quatrains, you have the turn or the volta, and that leads to the 3rd quatrain, and then finally a summary in the couplet. And I think what we have here is a fractional English sonnet, a Shakespearean sonnet. The 3 quatrains are missing, and there is this development before, and she summarizes that in this couplet, and it certainly is a couplet because you have this AA rhyme scheme: checkpoints, Victorians. Okay, not really a rhyme, but it's quite close to rhyme. And what's missing is the undressing of these 3 quatrains before. So again, I would say this is a wonderful sonnet.
Mark, you were waving Laynie's book, I think.
Yes.
But does she have sonnets of all sorts of different lengths in it? Because
Yes,
in England, you can't, no, bookshops don't stock it, so there's no way of seeing it. You've either got to buy it or not buy it. And I'm just quite curious as to what else is in it. Does she have a lot of sonnets of different lengths? What proportion of them are by her children and things like that?
Yes, the sonnets are of different lengths, and I think what L scanned for Modpo for sonnets, you can see that they have different lengths.
Yes, but other than the 6 and the 2, she would write in other different lengths as well.
Right.
That's what I'm asking.
Does she has like an 8/14 sonnet, or like a 7/14, or does she have like a?
Yeah, that's my question, Max. Thank you.
Yeah, because we have the 2, the 6, and then we have the 2, 4. In the extras, we also have the 14 liners. But if you have the book in front of you, Mark, is there one that's
Mark, would you
on the
read one?
next page, this is a sonnet that really looks like a sonnet. You have 3 quatrains and a couplet. I haven't
Would you
read
read it? Would you read it for us? Read one. Open. Anywhere.
Maybe that one. Sonnet of Baron Marc Sally's Longchamp. Is it French? I don't know. Ascadian heart manifests its presence by noises, knockings, a polite tangle of speech, temperature below that of incandescent, Etruscan rooms lacking thought, a circular disc, usually wooden with metal rim, for discreet distance, a rumor or price of gossip, often untrue, a sheet of white paper blotched and scrawled, dearest secret, exquisitely wretched, flintly, impenetrable embryo blossoms, voice reed white-tipped, thoughts of love, 1,000 to be well, one balm, corrosive, vicissitude, tears of tea. Okay, so no real rhyme scheme. And
What is that one?
It's difficult.
Does that one have a name?
Hmm?
Does that one have a name or number or whatever?
Well, they're all numbered. It starts with number 1, and it ends with 151. Shakespeare had 154. I think she tried to be as close to Shakespeare as she could possibly get. Isn't that also a phenomenon in symphony writing, that Beethoven is the great example, the great model, and all the others tried to be below 9 symphonies?
Right.
But that was a great example of the global village having a German try to read Laynie Brown. You did a good job, by the way.
Well, and I think Laynie is experimenting with so many things. The only book I have is the poet's novel, and it's not the length of a novel. It's this is the only book I have of hers. But now I want to get.
And she also says that she has no time writing these texts because she has to care for her children. That's one reason why she calls these poems daily sonnets. And even this 2/14 sonnet, probably she only had time writing this couplet, and writing a couplet certainly takes a lot of time, especially
the other
as it
book,
is such a wonderful
this is a
couplet.
beautiful, yeah. This one is
Which
a
one's that? Vijay,
contemporary.
can you hold it closer? Ah,
This is a lovely book. It's beautiful, lots of lists, and they're just amazing. It's also very experimental. Just she makes the whole. She's dedicated it to C.D. Wright, her mentor. They're just short lines, like, and I think she's numbered it by date. Here, so it's like the daily takes too much time. The second one is the second in the list, and she's like numbered them. So this the second one is, therefore I propose to waking every second, beginning each moment. The new year is just an excuse for counting.
That's great.
Back to the daily sonnets, I think that's such a wonderful project. Well, I read Laynie Brown's sonnet when I first took Modpo, and then I also read them a second time, and I thought, okay, okay. But when I reread them this week, I was so fascinated by these wonderful poems, because I was reflecting on what he was really doing, taking Donne, who wrote holy sonnets, starting a new tradition. I write religious topics in my sonnets. And then we have Laynie Brown, who says, I write daily sonnets. What John Donne can, I can the same, I can it even better. And here she starts writing about her daily life, about her inspirations that came during the day. It also influenced her writing. When there was no time writing a complete sonnet, she wrote only this fractional number of lines. And even having a 6/14 sonnet, isn't it great? Shakespeare also wrote half sonnets in Romeo and Juliet, one of his best plays. And then also writing this couplet for the 2/14 sonnet, and then having the sonnet undressing itself, which is quite typical for the 21st century, where the reader has to get active and create the art.
This is well put, Mark. I think that, yeah, the reframing of the Donne holy sonnet to the daily sonnet is very much an encapsulation of this kind of contemporary conceptual poetic practice. And it's something we encounter elsewhere in different poems and different units, right? Like the poetry becoming like work, or becoming a kind of necessity, becoming this sort of quotidian thing that's not only a tool for observing the everyday, but is enfolded into the everyday as a sort of as a way of thinking, a way of being, a way of making, and even potentially a way of working or surviving or something like that. And yeah, and hence this really like quotidian observation here in this second one about the undressing at the security checkpoints, right? And this sort of like theorizing of the sonnet as something that still has something to say in the present, potentially, even if it feels so, as a form, it feels so deterritorialized from the periods in which it was most popular, from the Elizabethans to the Victorians, obviously the several centuries there in between. But like these different times, right, where perhaps our own our world would seem alien to these people, but we still like their form still has something to say. It's the little live oak, right? That's kind of that's growing and sort of branching out and there's, and again, I think it comes down, as we see here in the second one, it comes down to this thing about compression, about you know, the sonnet being essentially, the sonnet's not an epic, right? I mean, so like Spencer also wrote like these like massive, well, I mean, the Fairy Queen, like, he wrote the Fairy Queen, which is like this gigantic epic poem, like this allegorical epic. But then, you know, he wrote all this sonnet. So there's something that the value of the sonnet as being like, as being fundamentally about constraint is kind of interesting. And something that I think she wants to really hold on to, bring into the present, this idea of constraint, and tie it back to a longer tradition of constraint, rather than saying that like, because she's, you know, she's working in this sort of experimental or conceptual poetic world, right, where there's a lot about constraint, and there's this lot of ideas that like, you know, we're going to, you can only write poems through n+7, or, you know, there's all these different like Oulipian constraints, right? And in some ways she wants to like uncover the longer tradition of that, I think, like, and be like, you know, constraint has been essential to poetry all along. It's not something that was just invented like in the 60s by some people in France. Like, it was actually, you know, it's been there for forever, and it has a value. It's essential to poetics, I think.
Well, and Max, let's think about what it is, what poetry is doing today, where that the Fairy Queen was, you know, radio or TV for those folks, and these things were the, you know, the real gems, you know, the Ben Franklin proverbs, where there was the long the stories that people could read to one another around a camp, you know, a hearth. And so here we have so much TV and video and YouTube, and so then she's just got to get to the sonnet, the pith, you know.
I was thinking when you got back to the holy sonnets, that you can also look at it very humanistic. Right? What is the most holy that we have nowadays, when we're a little short on religion? It's the daily life of the people, and that's especially so when she starts quoting her children, that you really have the most holy thing there is the daily life, the way the generations grow up.
That's that's a good point. The sort of secularization as well as the sonnet. Vijaya, you posted in the chat, referring to undressing to the way we close read is a great idea. Being open would be anathema to the Victorians. Would they like close reading? That's I mean, I guess it would depend on which Victorians you asked. Yeah, I mean, close reading as we practice it now is 20th century development. But there's of course other forms of interpretation that would have been more familiar in the 19th century. Textual interpretation.
Another thought that I had, the checkpoint, isn't that something like a ready-made? Ready-made, like as in Marcel Duchamp having this urinal or what have you, and making art out of it. What about the checkpoint? Isn't that something ordinary, boring? No one is really interested in it. And here we have Laynie Brown saying, "Oh, it's worth as the metaphor for a sonnet."
Yeah.
The best form in poetry, and she presents this to us.
That's a good observation. I mean, the security checkpoint is a kind of daily ritual akin to the writing of daily sonnets.
It's ordinary, and she makes it extraordinary, even by associating that with the Victorians and that wonderful joke.
But yeah, this daily thing. There are these euphemisms that we're used to that have this other meaning, you know, because security was a different meaning somewhere else. Checkpoint you know, there was checkpoint Charlie and there were other things like that. But now we know, everybody puts this picture, security checkpoint. We know what that means. That's at the airport kind of
We know
thing,
it's an airport,
because
yeah.
it's associated with the undressing. So taking these things that we've made into the urinal, the thing, this object that we don't even want to discuss because it's so ordinary, to bring those pictures, to use that is, I love your analogy that it's a ready-made, that's what Duchamp was doing, was sticking these things that we never look at, we try not to look at really, in front of us. And yeah, she's doing that. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, there's also
And it's really our modern world, or contemporary world. It's not a train station. It's not Ezra Pound. What's that? At station of the metro. Oh, it's quite similar. So I have to write 2 lines, and that is the couplet. And I will do with the sonnet what Ezra Pound did with the haiku, and he wasn't ambitious enough to write a sonnet on it, but only this haiku.
The other thing about the checkpoint is they say, would you prefer to be in a private room? I have artificial hips, and you know, I always set off all the alarms, and I say, whatever you're going to do to me, do right here in front of everyone. You know, do not take me behind closed doors, because that feels so much like Guatemala or some other place that,
Yeah.
oh, right. So
But
it is a private room because we do not know what really happens when a Victorian comes to the checkpoint, and she invites us to imagine what would happen if this conditional would never have gone over with the Victorians. It's also the imagination. She invites us to imagine something, to enter the world of poetry. I have no time writing the sonnet properly. You do. You do the undressing.
Well, I'm watching this, or I just watched a series on Prime that about the clothing of the, you know, of the old kings and all of this, and the many layers, and just it would be so hard to check. I mean, it just made me burst out laughing at those 2 lines.
But
I wonder why she didn't say Shakespearean or Petrarchan. She says Victorian. So I'm kind of wondering whether, like, you know, it also relates to imperialism, and that they did not bother with security points for other countries. They just went and grabbed all the other countries, and would that?
And our I mean, our whole concept of security checkpoints in the airport is based on these sorts of imperial prejudices to begin with, right? Like, we all know who gets checked more at security checkpoints than other people, right? So there is a very Victorian idea built in there.
Max, we know who's hijacked planes and put bombs on planes too.
Yes,
so it's not necessarily the imperial attitude, but because of democracy, because of that we all travel together, we're no longer saying only the people with enough money to get on the top of the plane, because we kept the poor people were in steerage. They were locked down below. And so we didn't have to worry about them. They could have gangs and knife fights and whatever down there. But the upper class were separated. So by separating, we didn't need to have those checkpoints. You didn't need to do that. Only the people with enough money to get in there, who we assume are going to be genteel. I'm sure there were some knife fights too. So anyway, that's the point.
What's interesting about this 2-line one is you don't need anything else. She's done enough in 2 lines.
Exactly.
But as you were sat here talking about it for however long, and you don't need to add anything.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, isn't it?
The perfect sonnet is short. And how short can you get as 2 lines?
Yeah, that's about as
and the couplet.
Yes.
And look, Mary is smiling. She's getting this. She was a doubter to begin with, that this was a more interesting, could be a more interesting sonnet than a classical one. What do you think, Mary?
You're in agreement, Mary?
You're
On that
muted.
note, on that note, with the time we have left, maybe we should take a look at the other
I
poem,
know I'm trying.
which I've just posted in the chat here. It's Rachel Loden's "I Know a Brand." Another week and come on, Pope.
Actually, Max, could we maybe have a quick round of final words?
Oh yeah, sure. Go for it,
I
Stan.
mean, we could after we talk to I Know a Brand, but if we could just go around and everybody say, you know, a 2-word haiku or something. I don't know.
Does anybody want to?
What on the daily sonnets? Stanley,
Loved it, thank you.
what final words?
What's that? Oh,
Loved it, thank you.
Yeah.
Love it.
very-
Thank you, John.
Wow. I'll just say, wow, this has been an incredible Modpo season, especially the office hours. And
Thanks,
that's my
Stan.
final word.
I like what we're talking about here with the security checkpoints. I think it's really fascinating. That's given me a lot to I don't know. I think the security checkpoint at the airport is a bit like the sonnet, a kind of living and evolving ritual. Insofar as every time you go through it, it's going to be a little bit different.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think
Yes.
it's a shame we didn't have time for the other two, because there you have the two mentioning of the caterpillar, which is something that makes a metamorphosis. Sorry, and I think that's a great image to have in mind when you look at the many forms that Laynie puts a sonnet into. My final form.
Anybody else, or we can move on to the Loden, and also just we can sort of summarize to make some time at the end just to make sure that we can sort of debrief. This is Rachel Loden's "I Know a Brand." I'm gonna go ahead and read it. I know a brand. As I said to my friend, because I am always shopping, "John," I said, which was not his name, "the market surrounds us. What can we do against it, or else shall we, and why not, buy a Jaguar XKR? Floor it," he said, "for Christ's sake, 4.9 seconds to 60 miles per hour. This is, of course, a rewriting of Robert Creeley's "I Know a Man," which we encounter elsewhere in the course, much or halfway with the beats in the course. I mean, this is clever. Does it? So we've just been talking about Laynie Brown and how she seems to be doing some appreciation of the sonnet that seems to really work on a few different levels, like a Spumoni ice cream. There's a kind of there's an appeal to the form, to its relevance, to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a case being made for its importance, for the way that it can be intellectually stimulating or just purely elegant, fitting on one page. I mean, what does this rewriting here of Creeley, compared to, say, a rewriting of Donne? I mean, what is this doing for the original? Is it just clever, or does it actually have something more to say? I actually don't know. I'm posing this as a start question for everyone.
What it's doing for the original, that's a really good question, because I was thinking, John, I said, which was not his name, is direct from the original. And it really makes us think again about that original line. Like, what the fuck? Why would you bother to say John, which was not his name?
Good point, Terry. By leaving that part intact, Loden's really calling our attention to it, which is truly the WTF moment of the poem in many ways. Any other thoughts?
Yes, I agree completely. It's very easy to recognize, to know immediately what was the original poem. It also has the same spelling. As I said, SD. It's not written with all letters. The repetition of, as I said to my friend, because I am John, I said, which was not his name, and that there are even more similarities to the original one.
Only 6 changes.
Right.
Only 6, Jenny. Is that you
Well,
tracking?
he's changed talking to shopping in the first verse.
Yeah.
Market to darkness in the second one.
Yep.
Goddamn big car to Jaguar XKR in the third one. Drive to floor it. Look to 4.9, and then out where you're going to seconds to 60 mph.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It's just 6 places that she's made changes. I
And,
think this is
and
funny,
even they
actually.
are quite close. The car and to rhyme with by Jaguar XKR.
Not by a Jaguar, goddamn big car, Jaguar XKR. Yeah.
So the sound is even similar.
Mm.
Is that a good car, by the way? Because I no idea about cars. No.
You can look. Jaguars in general are considered luxury cars, so I'm assuming.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna Google it. Yeah, it looks like a pretty expensive sports car.
And also, she's not inside a car. That thing happens inside the car. This one, it's not inside the car.
That's
She's
true.
at a showroom. She's at a big white,
Yeah.
very clean showroom, looking at a Jaguar.
What does floret means? Floret, what does that mean?
Floret means drive.
Okay.
So there is
Right.
potentially they are potentially still in the car.
It's put the pedal to the floor.
Yeah, put the pedal all the way down.
Okay.
Yeah, and the salesman could say floor it. You could, yeah, because you're displaced also in the I am not the Creeley. We don't know really where we are in the Creeley also. So Jenny, what you said about the where we are is it's she's setting us in the market, but then we're elsewhere in an abstract, almost a dream of where we're going, just like look where you're going.
But we're
It's
talking
Petunias, sorry.
brand now. You
We're
know,
talking what?
talking about the brand, the exotic Jaguar, I know a brand. I mean, you just start laughing at the title.
Yeah.
I thought it was very cynical.
Yeah.
Yes, it
it's-
is cynical.
Yeah, because the first one is from 1955, I think, really, and that was really the time when the big cars were about freedom and everything, and this is so much about you only have brands, you only have it's the florid and go anywhere. That's only advertisement, right? It's not real anymore.
When there was a big 2008 crash, one of our great presidents of the state says, just keep shopping. And the thing is, always shopping, I think, is so important because the market, especially the market across the internet, is a dark place. Nobody really controls it anymore. It's never national or local or whatever. It's a terribly dark place. So I think it's picking it up to now. The darkness surrounds us. The market surrounds us.
Yeah.
And really, there are plenty of studies on how we are the product. That's what's being said. So the darkness, I think, is the market. And then bringing it up to date. And what's quite funny, if you're going to buy a Jaguar, you're not even going 60 miles per hour. He's going short, 5 minutes short of 60 miles per hour. So that puts them in a very low class kind of a car. So I think it's this dream, this shopping dream, always to have something, a better brand, look good to your neighbors. There's the thing called fear of people's opinions, FOPO. And it means that you have to look good. You have to look like you have a Jaguar. You have to look.
Yeah.
The market wants you to look good. So
And also,
Last statement.
we've taken away, look out where you're going. And what we're saying now is go faster, that you can get from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 4.9 seconds. We're just going as fast as we can.
Acceleration. It's not speed, it's acceleration.
It's acceleration.
0 to
And
60 in
it's-
4.9.
And it's completely changed the meaning of the thing, because there's no warning to be careful now. All there is go shopping and go as fast as you can. So I think Mary's point was really good.
Yeah.
And it's just made me realise that by changing the end, it has brought it right up to date. So just go shopping, go as fast as you can. You know, go for it.
And I think there's actually so much going on here. This observation about the fact that it being about acceleration rather than speed is really fascinating, because acceleration, of course, is a measure of a rate of change. So it's like a measure of a measure. So there's this sort of element of remove to it, right? There's a term in calculus for this, but I don't. I took calculus a long time ago, but maybe somebody knows. For when you're looking at
Jeroen, what do you think about the acceleration?
yeah,
Acceleration is never sustainable.
Mhm.
that's okay, that's a good point.
It also refers to in a race, kind of, you accelerate to go ahead of somebody. So it's like, it's this idea of success, which, and always being ahead, which is like, and that's why I was referring to the documentary called Century of the Self, which Jason recommended. And it's like a fascinating documentary about how Edward Bernays, Freud's nephew, he noticed how, Hitler used to crowd psychology to, get the people, the masses to his side. And then how the opposite, like, the allies and all, how they worked on, and so he came back and he thought, how about using this crowd psychology in peace times? And he decided that he would, propaganda is a bad word, so he would call it public relations. And he began the public relations thing. And then the tobacco company came to him and asked him, 50% of the population does not smoke because smoking is taboo, and so he said, and he launched this campaign where he got these debutantes to hide cigarettes, and then in a parade, at a given signal, all 6 or 7 of them started smoking, and those were called torches of freedom. And that kind of increased the sales of the tobacco. So it's like this consumerism, right? It's like using, so this is like, so I think this is like an indictment of, like, where the title is shifting from I know a man, like, that's what we all, I mean, we need to know, like, it's the connection, right, which is important. But then I know a brand. So it's like, I don't know.
Right.
And nowadays you have personal branding. You have to see yourself as a brand, and it's all.
Yeah, it's like consumerism. It's commodification and objectification, which the language poets are calling out on, right? The experimental poets.
Yeah.
Yes, and she really knows a brand. Whereas in the other poem, I Know a Man,
A man.
persona, the speaker does not know the man.
Yeah.
Is it John? No, that was not his name. I was wondering who the speaker is. Is it Rachel Loden? Is the speaker female? And if the speaker is female, what is this unsexy phrase? I'm always shopping. Is that what all? Sorry. It's the stereotype. Is that what all women do? But if the speaker is female, are women really interested in cars? And here the speaker is quite clear, talking about the Jaguar. And it's not a Jaguar, it's even a Jaguar XKR, so a special Jaguar, a special car.
She's always shopping possibly for a man, which is
No.
John, which is not his name.
It's a very stereotypical idea of a woman who's shopping, right?
No. The idea of John in both poems, when the police talk about John Doe, is any man. They call it Jane Doe for a woman and John Doe. So I think that means every man, John.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah, which also the sort of everyman quality, right, is also goes towards this kind of critique that Boden wants to make about the, you know, we're all becoming brands, right? Like, but to Mark's question about the speaker, that's a good point. I mean, right, because we have two competing stereotypes that are invoked, right? One of always shopping and one of being of like caring a lot about cars and the details about cars. So you have these two like different gendered stereotypes that kind of make it difficult to determine what at least what the potential gender of the speaker is, let alone who the speaker might be. Whereas it seems much
Men are increasingly the target for shopping, aren't they?
Yeah,
I mean,
well, everybody.
Men now do much more shopping than they did. There's all this business of fragrances for men and
yeah, of course,
for men. No, I think if you just on television advertising, there's a huge targeting of men now, which there never used to be.
Sure.
I mean, this could be two men talking about buying a car.
Yeah, which is
know.
That's how I've understood it. And I think there's a way to understand the line I always shopping in the more metaphorical or abstract sense rather than, you know, go that fits more with this interpretation of the poem being about how we've all become brands or something, right? This sort of indictment of a certain phase of industrial capitalism. I'm always shopping as a kind of like, as a sort of statement of fact, not like oh, I can't stop shopping, I love to go shopping, but more like I can't help, like there's no way of existing in the world that's not in some way consuming a product and engaging in transactions, right? So I am always shopping by default. We are all always shopping, right?
Yeah.
My friend is a brand, you know, right? like we're all like, everything is so transactional. Ciao, Stanley. So yeah, maybe we can sort of eliminate some of those gendered connotations there if we think of it that way. I'm always shopping.
But we don't know if we're in the showroom or whether we're online. We don't know where we are.
We don't know. That's true.
And I don't know about other
It's
people.
all
I do all my
around.
shopping
The
online.
market
Really.
surrounds us. We have the chance to shop all the time.
Right. And the market as an economic concept as well, right? Not just like the marketplace, but the market as that which as where you know, that which must be sort of protected and elevated above everything else. That's, I think, also sort of what's being talked about here, like the market.
You know the book The Visit from the Goon Squad?
Yeah, I just reread it actually.
Yeah, where you have in the end when you go to the science fiction part, and you have the 2-3-year-olds who are called the pointers because they got this device which they pointed at something, they immediately buy it.
Yeah,
it's horrible, but it's very much what we're going to with this market surrounds us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even right here today, several of us went shopping in our minds, wanting Laynie's book.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's
especially we cannot really escape. The market surrounds us. What can we do against it? We buy something. We buy the car.
Yeah. But that's kind of that's a rather like insightful observation, I would say, right? Like if the market, if the logic of the market surrounds us and totalizes us and has penetrated every facet of our life, what is there to do? Like, what can you possibly do against it? You know, why
Right.
not buy the car? Why not just engage in these transactions? Why not give over to it?
In
Seven-
Greeley poem, it's clear. There's darkness. What can we do? Drive off. Go to a different place
yeah.
where there is light.
There's still an outside.
What
Yeah.
can we do against it? Nothing. We continue
Metal
trucking.
to metal. So what can we do against it? I haven't had a TV for years. And so I'm not bombarded with what many people have mentioned on TV in terms of advertising. It's not that I'm immune to it because it's so evident everywhere. I mean, in just everyday conversation, and if there's a brand name on my clothing, I take it off. I've done that for 30 years or more. So, you know, it's my mini rebellion. Maybe the way I do life. So I really like this poem for what it's telling us.
Yeah.
About ourselves.
Yeah, I think
class. And,
no,
you know,
I agree. I think it's interesting. No, finish your thought, sorry. Sorry?
Were you finished, CJ?
Yeah, that's
okay. Yeah. Okay, Yunia, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, I think that's a really the way, like what you're describing is kind of getting out of the kind of finding the small things, how to get out of the system. And I think it's quite interesting that this poem is not only saying you can't do anything, but maybe also focusing on the only things you can are inside the system. So the only, I mean, they're always saying the only thing you can do is like show the, I don't know, market what you want by buying different things. Maybe buy more, I don't know, vegan food to, yeah, what the market wants is what you kind of, what you support, that's what is like produced more, and then you kind of influence it that way. And I do think it's kind of this like capitalist idea of just, if you want to do something, you have to stay inside the system and still buy the Jaguar and kind of show what you want in that way. But it is kind of, that's why I was asking earlier if that is a good like brand. I mean Jaguar obviously, but like the XKR, I don't know what that meant. Because I'm not sure if the poem is saying anything beyond that. Like is the choice of buying a Jaguar like something maybe a bit off? Is that something people would do? Why would they buy that car specifically? It's kind of, I don't know.
It's a very expensive big car, so it's this idea of being buying something that's exclusive. So you have this idea, I'm not a typical person of the market. I'm one from the top floor, as Terry just said, in the big ship. I'm the owner of a Jaguar, so I'm not just somebody ordinary.
Okay, so the XKR thing is even like makes the Jaguar even better.
It's just a type of Jaguar, and a Jaguar is this horrible, is just overly expensive brand.
With a lot of luxurious accessories and all that, right? Yeah.
And Yunia, you could go visit the Jaguar factory because they're they're made in England.
Yeah.
And and this is the XKR is apparently, I think she used it for the sound, but
I think so
it's
too.
a smaller, it's a two-door car, so it's a sportier car. It would really be distinctive, and I don't know that they imported it into the United States, so it makes it even more exclusive.
Okay.
But also the two-door car, I mean, that fits with the two-person sort of dialogue or exchange that's happening here, right? So you have this sort of the commodity fitting the situation quite nicely in a way. I mean, I guess the question remains, you know, to sort of build on your point, Yunia, about like, are they have they already bought the car? So like in the Creeley poem, they've already bought the car. They're already in the car. Have John and the speaker, are they already in a Jaguar XKR and just being like, you know, they're driving down the road and being like, yeah, why not just buy a cool car like this? And then John says, floor it, yeah, let's do it. Right? Or are they like fantasizing about it? Because I mean, if they already own the Jaguar XKR, that sort of says something about their class position. Because as we're saying, it's not like a Jaguar is not the car that like normal people buy. It's a rich person car. And
Max, well,
yep.
the key words, the two key words in both of these poems, what can we do against it? Or we go against it, or else why not just fold and join it? That's what Junior just said. So I think you're right, Junior. Or else let's just fold. Let's just join them. If you can't beat them,
Join the system. Yeah, we can't beat the system. We join the system.
Exactly. And I think the or else is what Junior pointed out is so important in this poem.
I think it's both. Why not by Jaguar? It's first a suggestion. They haven't bought the car, and they cannot speed off. But they say for it, he said, for Christ's sake, 4.9 seconds to 60 miles per hour. That is probably not the speed of the car. That is their own speed. They still have to buy the car, and they hurry up so that they can buy the car. It can also mean that they are in a different car, and then they drive off in order not to buy that expensive car.
But I think it could also mean they've just bought it. I think it could mean they've just bought it, and he's saying, put your foot down, see if we can do 4.9 seconds. No, we've bought it, we're in it, wow. And off we go.
I mean, it's
interesting. That's three possible readings for that last verse.
Well, and the other two that I was proposing is that it's meta. It's the self, the brand, and so I'm just going to take the self and go off 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. Accelerate what I'm doing, accelerate myself. Could be the positive reading. Get away from this market, just off. Off into my own space, be the self out here, just like the Creeley. The idea that he's not really driving, but that he is doing Creeley. We make him a brand now, but maybe it's really just his self. And then the John warns him, careful, that self could be dangerous.
But I think
what's the brand, by the way?
The what?
What's the brand? Is it the Jaguar?
The brand is the external self. This thing that you put your name, get your name on it. The name tag in front of you.
Yes, I'm just reflecting what else it could be. What associations? I was also thinking of Creeley himself. I know Brand. I know a poet who wrote such a poem.
Yeah, it's become sort of famous and essentially part of Creeley's brand, I suppose. But to this other point, I mean, what strikes me, what I find interesting about this poem here is the very ending, where John becomes complicit, for lack of a better word. John says like, oh yeah, like floor it, like go for it, right? Which is very different from the drive, he said, for Christ's sake, look out where you're going, where John is actually this sort of this opposing voice to the speaker in the original. So in the original, of course, the speaker is always talking, and the speaker's imagining this darkness that surrounds them, but also imagining this outside of it. Like if we can use, the darkness being something like the square post-war consumer culture, which also luckily furnishes these commodities like goddamn big cars that we can use to ultimately escape that same culture, right? So there's this interesting kind of like there's this way in which the what you dislike, the darkness, is something that can still be opposed, you know, both within and without it, like external to it. So there's this sort of like dialectical possibility, whereas which is also, I think, reflected in the fact that John himself becomes this kind of like this other to the speaker, right? Being like saying, "You look out where you're going," you know, we're two different people. Whereas here, you know, the in this poem, we're talking a bit about how there doesn't seem to be that outside anymore to the darkness, because the market now surrounds us. Everything, we're always shopping. Everything is mediated through the market, through brands. And I think thus it's telling that John, that there's a sort of collapse of the opposition between the two figures in the poem, that John and the speaker are essentially on the same page. The speaker says, why not just buy a Jaguar? And John's like, yeah, awesome, let's do it. There's no more, there's this recognition that it's really hard, you know, that there aren't really ways to oppose anything anymore, right? Like if the market indeed surrounds us, it's rather
well, we don't even criticize Max anymore, you know. Yeah, do that, write those stupid poems. Yeah, they're really, I mean, I think they're shit, but I'm not going to say it out loud because that would make me look bad if I criticized you.
right.
So yeah, just floor it. Yeah.
But maybe
What,
you could.
what if,
Oh yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
So Jaya?
Jaya and Jira?
No, what if, you know, it's the title. I mean, I'm again intrigued by I know a man and then I know a brand. And what if he's saying that, and he's named the brand a specific luxury item, which is exclusive, which is like poetry, fairer house than prose. So what if the Jaguar is the poem itself? And this is what we'll drive to go against the market. That's what the experimental poets are saying, right? That this is the luxury. So I'm always shopping anyway. So, but why don't we shop for this one? Why don't we go for this one? That's poetry.
That's a really great
A brand and the man. So connecting the brand to the man, to that, like, look, I mean, if we could write poetry like that. So she's paying homage to poetry itself, to the form.
That's really astute, Vijay. That's really interesting. Yeah, and that also offers us ultimately then, and then this is going to be like super modpo-ish, but like the meta possibility.
I think modpo makes you keep on thinking meta.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's good, because here I think that's the meta possibilities of the poem, or the meta poetry that the poem is punning on by being a rewriting of a poem that is in some ways about poetry at a certain time and place. You know, that is ultimately what offers the way of thinking outside of potentially outside of the totalizing system of the market that you know, seems to be so impossible to escape, right? Rather than being like, we need to drive away from it, or we need to criticize it, or we need the right. There's this actually other way of thinking of sort of running a different kind of operation that's actually about like getting a different perspective on it at this meta level. That's a really cool way to think about this poem, and potentially redeem it as a poem that wants to have some positive effect on the world, and is not just a description of a really
which is so kind of full of all this jargon, right? Like florid.
Right. We can again, just like Creeley, you know, got the big car from the lucrative auto industries of the post-war period in the United States, to drive away from the same sort of square Fordist culture of the time. Here we can do the same thing, right? We can use we can use the language of the market in some ways to get some purchase on it, to get some perspective on it, even though it feels like it surrounds us.
Why did you only have 6 changes? I mean, Laynie Brown only had 6 adoptions, 6 takeovers from Dunn, and changed the rest. And here it's almost the same poem, except these 6 changes. Can anyone explain?
I can't explain, but I can suggest. This to me seems rather like Laynie Brown's checkpoint one, that you don't need any more changes. No, you don't need any more lines to the checkpoint poem, and you don't need any more changes to this to transform what it's about. But I don't know if that's right or not, but that's how I would see it. And what was Jeroen going to say just now?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer.
When we were talking about if John was opposing the I about buying the Jaguar, I was thinking that you could also read the last bit like it was a bit under his breath, that he thinks a Jaguar is much too much. Florid, the car we have now, and then he said, and then under his breath, oh, for Christ's sake, 4.9 seconds to 60 miles per hour, like something we don't need. That was another way of thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, so that restores the kind of dialectical opposition then.
Yeah, I needed that. But the acceleration of Vijaya by going metapoetic was much better.
Any concluding thoughts on this poem with the few minutes that we have left, or also on the Laynie Brown poems? If anybody has anything they wanted to say, or anything that any sort of late conclusions to draw?
Can I suggest we talk about some more Laynie Brown poems in the future?
Yeah, we should.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
CJ, were you?
Two really interesting poems, and similarities pointed out, and differences, of course. And I don't always make it to this, and I will try to be here next time.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, CJ. I know it's much earlier for you out there, although Terry, it's also quite early for you, I think, right?
It's we started at 7.
You also
Yeah, I'm in California.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, CJ and Vijaya, you're both on the West Coast. Terry, you're on Mountain Time.
Mountain, so it's 8 o'clock when I started, and Vijaya started at 7. Yeah, and CJ. Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in.
Well, it was really nice to see it go sunset for y'all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's gotten
you just got darker and darker.
The sun is setting pretty early these days in Northern Europe.
Yeah, 5.
Yeah,
sunset's at 5 out here.
You have to see this. This is a cloudy day in Santa Fe, so
Okay.
That's a cloudy day in Santa Fe. Yes.
Oh, this is a really cloudy day in Santa Fe. Yeah, but it's gloomy, and we just don't see this. Usually, that's completely blue.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's Unia. Everybody in London would be wearing shorts and
that's cloudy, definitely.
Okay, sorry. I just had to indulge you all.
For us, it's the Festival of Lights for the next 3 days. So.
Oh, cool.
Like, yeah,
nice.
It's one of the most. It's as big as Christmas. So yeah.
And what is it?
The Festival of Lights, Diwali.
Yeah.
It's called the Festival of Lights. It
And-
just
and
follows
is that-
Halloween. So there's lots of lights, like oil lamps and lamps and I don't know, lanterns, and I'm not doing anything because I put up my house for sale. I can't do anything.
Right.
So, I've listed my house, so I can't do anything. But I'm inviting friends over for dinner tomorrow. So
Nice.
You will enlighten them. You will enlighten them.
they will kind of, I don't know, lighten me up. It's nice to have people for dinner, right?
It's St. Martin's Day in Germany.
Nice.
Perhaps also in the Netherlands.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I just heard the first children ringing the doorbell and coming out for.
What do they do? Is it like Halloween?
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
trick or treat part of Halloween. It's
Okay.
it's
Oh,
today.
is there? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they come with lanterns and expect sweets.
Yeah.
I
Sweets, yeah.
don't know if there will be any kids on my street in Berlin because it's
No, we
not
do
exactly a
have that.
kid friendly street.
But we have lamps, and we go through the streets with these lamps, and we have St. Martin on a horse, who is
Oh.
in front.
Oh yeah, so you
Oh,
actually have
parade.
the procession then the
Yeah.
whole parade. Yeah, they must do that somewhere in Berlin. I don't know where they do that though. Maybe like in quieter residential parts.
And usually we also have a bonfire where everything starts or where everything ends.
Oh, nice.
And
you
again,
English folks, it's just boring there. What's going on in England?
Dark.
oh,
Darkness.
I intended to continue because there's more, because this is also the beginning of our carnival season.
Oh yeah, happy
In
carnival.
former
Yeah.
time, and both belongs together, St. Martin and the carnival
Yeah.
season, because yes, today it's November 11th, so there are still 46 days to Christmas.
Oh.
And 46 days before Easter, we have Ash Wednesday.
Okay.
And in former times, they also had a similar celebration before Christmas. Well, that it was centuries ago. But we still have both traditions that we have that bonfire for St. Martin, and also we start our carnival season.
Yeah, I kind of
Similar,
escaped
right,
the carnival
everywhere.
mania.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's huge out in West Germany, of course. In the greater Köln area. Yeah, Berlin. They don't. There's no palpable carnival mood other than the basic baseline carnival mood of this city.
Yes,
But there's no like
carnival is
special.
more a Catholic tradition, and Berlin is not a Catholic area.
Yeah. So hence why you find it more in the Catholic part.
And it's different in Cologne.
Yeah, of course. Great. Well, thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You.
Today,
Thank you, Max. Thank you,
great.
Mark.
Hey, Mark,
Thank you.
where are you at? Where are you located?
In Germany, it's
Yeah.
the western part, quite close to Cologne. It's Trier, well, quite to Cologne.
Oh, Trier, that's right.
2
Okay,
hours
yeah.
drive. It's a 2 hours drive from Cologne, but for American standards, that's certainly close.
That's like going
close,
to
close to Luxembourg. Close to Luxembourg.
Yeah, I think I walked to Trier from Luxembourg. I walked across the river, and
Oh, cool.
that's that was the first time I was ever in Germany. I was in Luxembourg. My husband and I were making a sculpture in Beaufort, in a little town in Luxembourg, Beaufort.
Yeah.
And we walked through the forest and across the river, and we're in Germany. Wow, exciting.
Ta-da.
Nothing happened to us, though.
Thankfully.
Just a normal country.
Yeah.
The magic of the EU.
Yeah.
Right.
Enjoy your weekends, the rest of your Saturdays. For some of you, I know that you have a lot of Saturday ahead of you. So enjoy it, and we'll be in touch. Mark, it sounds like you want to lead up a meeting soon. As I said, the next couple weeks are dicey for me, but we can coordinate something by email, and I hope to see you all again.
Yeah, sure.
Long.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for a wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful.
Very much.
Thank you all.
Wonderful. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Bye.